number one was to develop a diverse system of forest-based, environmentally sustainable trails. I don't know if I can. All right, it's not. I got to pop up. Goal number two is to provide the Greenway, the Grand Trunk Trail, and focus on that getting completed. So I've got to. All right, there we go. I can do that. Goal number three is to provide a safer and more efficient bicycling and pedestrian infrastructure, including connections throughout the town, our commercial areas, and our scenic vistas. Goal number four was to establish education and outreach materials that direct the residents and visitors to our trails and provide volunteer opportunities. Goal number five was to improve and highlight public access to the Quinnebog River. And goal number six was to try to bring the plan together within the town and all of the stakeholders to keep the plan moving forward. One of the key successes of the master plan was the creation of the trail guide. This guide is now in its second printing. It was funded by the Sturbridge Tourist Association. The guide copies are available at both the town hall and the center office building, as well as you can download it from our town website. And it includes maps and descriptions of 10 different properties, 5 of which are town and 5 are our partners, with 37 miles of trail. It also briefly explains trail rules and the trail types. It has QR codes because we all know maps turn almost obsolete the day they're printed. So folks that keep their most current information on their website, we have QR codes, and it has lots of pictures of our beautiful trails. Here is just several links, and this will all be available on the town's website, this presentation. So I know I'm kind of going through this really fast, but the second part of this, our team from the Conway School will be breaking this down and discussing this in more detail. Briefly, you heard me mention about the 50 miles of trail. Here's a graph of where we are at towards that initial goal. That was the minimum number of trails that we were told we needed for Sturbridge to start to become a tourist trail related destination. So as you can see by the bottom, we're not quite there yet with the trails that have been constructed and proposed, but we are closing in on the 50 miles. But again, that's just the starting point. And our Trails Master Plan Update team is made up of 4 of us from the town. Jean Boubon, our town planner, Rebecca Gendro, our conservation agent, myself, and Brandon Goodwin, chair of the Trails Committee. The Conway students, whom you'll be meeting shortly, will introduce themselves. Before I do turn it over to them, Jean, do you want to say a few words?
Sure.
Yep.
Thanks, Tom. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who's hopped on this meeting tonight. It's great to see so many people with such an interest in trails and our open space lands in Sturbridge. And I would just ask if you could put your email address into the chat box. This way we'll have the email addresses of all the participants and we can keep you up to date with any future meetings that way. And also at any time, if anyone has any specific questions about the process or wants more information, feel free to give us a call or stop by the planning department and we'll be happy to give you any information we can. And again, thank you all for participating. This is really a great turnout this evening. And with that, I'll turn it over to our Conway team.
myself. Okay, sorry about that.
Sorry, that you guys. I'll introduce myself first. My name is Evan Hendra. I actually grew up right down the road in Oakland, Massachusetts. I attended UMass Amherst and graduated in 2015 with a bachelor's degree in environmental design. After that, I began to work in landscape construction, mostly for a large construction company, landscape construction company in Medway, Massachusetts. During that time, I really got interested in horticulture and planning, and I received a UMass Green School certificate as a horticultural professional. During that time, I was just also living down the road in Webster, Massachusetts. Currently at the Conway School, mostly just because I'm an avid hiker. I love exploring the outdoors, and I just love plants.
Hey folks, my name is Amanda Marquis. I originally hail from Vermont's Northeast Kingdom, and I studied studio art and psychology at University of Vermont. I have a background with trail building and trail crew leadership with various youth conservation organizations, including Northwood Stewardship Center, which is based in Northern Vermont, and Vermont Youth Conservation Corps, which is based in Richmond, Vermont. After graduating from UVM, I went on to take a job as a gallery manager and graphic designer for 4 years with a nonprofit art center. And then when I left there in 2018, I became an associate at Horsford Gardens and Nursery. So I kind of returned to my roots in horticulture and plants and conservation, so to speak, reconnected with that passion, and that led me here to Conway. And I'm so excited to be working with the folks in Sturbridge and you all tonight.
Hello, I'm Jess McSella, and I grew up in Queens, New York, and also in Northern New Jersey, where I still live, except for when I'm attending Conway School in Northampton. I attended the New Jersey Institute of Technology for architecture, and I've been working professionally as an architect for about 20 years. The last 8 years, I've worked in the transportation sector, so I've been exposed to a lot of different types of things, such as complete streets and rail and busing and things like that. So also, I'm a certified floodplain manager. I started doing that a while back after some of the Hurricane Sandy work that we had to do. And I also attended the New York Botanical Garden for horticultural therapy a while ago. I'm happy to say I live within walking distance of a rail trail in Northampton, and I'm about a mile away from a reservation in New Jersey. So I'm pretty lucky.
All right, so just to give you folks a little bit of context with the Conway School. The Conway School's mission, real guiding principle, is to explore, develop, practice, and teach design of the land that is ecologically and socially sustainable. It was originally located in Conway, Massachusetts, founded in 1972. The school is an accelerated 10-month graduate level program, and it's currently located in Northampton. Right now we have 18 students. Right now there's 6 teams of 3 students each, and we're working on projects ranging from food system accessibility in Holyoke to climate resiliency in Plainfield, and the trails update here in Sturbridge. The Sturbridge team has been asked to review the existing trails master plan and provide an updated plan based on the community input, GIS data, and some extensive research on our part.
So it's so nice to meet you, and it looks like most folks, a lot of folks have their cameras on right now. And if you're comfortable doing so, we'd love to ask you to keep your cameras on throughout the meeting, just so we can, there's going to be an open discussion portion. So we'd like to be able to see your faces and be as close to an in-person meeting as possible. So right now, we're not totally sure how familiar folks are with the Zoom platform. I know that typically Sturbridge uses a different platform for public meetings, but just so everybody's on the same page here, if your video icon looks like this with a line through the camera, it means that your video is currently off. And if you click that button, it will look like this, and that means your camera will be on. That's okay, can't see my mouse, but I got a laser pointer tool here. Now you should be able to use that, see that. Similarly, if there if your microphone does not have a line through it and it's jumping green, it means your microphone is on. And until you're ready to speak, we'd like you to keep your microphone off. So if it looks like this, click it to make sure that there is a line through it. That means your mic is muted. And if you would like to speak, please do remember to unmute your mic first. Similarly, we're going to be relying pretty heavily on the chat function in this meeting, just because we have quite a few folks and we want to make sure everybody's thoughts are heard. So you can click on that little speech bubble down in the corner of your screen here, and that'll bring up the chat window, and you should be able to put your input right there in the chat. And as Tom and Jean have requested, we'd love to capture everybody's emails so we can keep you updated on the progress of the plan moving forward. So just to make sure that everybody understands these functions and they're actually working properly, we're doing kind of a hybrid meeting. So our audio is a little bit tricky tonight, and this will give us a chance to practice. But first of all, we want to start by asking you folks a question and getting to know you a little bit. If you could open up that chat window and respond in the chat with your favorite trail in Sturbridge, we'd love to hear from you. And we'll make sure that that chat function is functioning properly. So what is your favorite trail in Sturbridge? And if you could respond in the chat, that would be great. So we've got 70 Cedar Street. That's lovely. Burgess. Oh, Ravens Rook. I agree. We got to check out the Knife Edge the other day when we were here in town, and David Peterkin's recommendation, and we loved it as well. Westville Loop. Yeah. Trails next to your neighborhood. Thank you so much, Dina. Ooh. Beautiful. Thanks for that. That sounds good. Looks like everybody seems to be able to use that. Does anybody have any questions about the chat function? No? Great. So now we're going to test out the poll function, which we'll be using periodically throughout the meeting. So shortly, you're going to get a pop-up window that says with a request for a poll, and you can respond accordingly. And we'll go ahead and launch that poll now. Bear with us for just a moment.
Get to it. Can you launch it? Evan can't launch it. Even though your co-hosts for some reason. Find it. Oh, polling. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and.
Not that.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
Launching.
We're getting there.
Now.
Sorry about that. Now you have the poll.
I'll give you a few minutes to answer.
Oh, everything's like neck and neck. Oh, hiking is getting up there pretty quick. All right, we have a lot of hikers in the town.
Oh, you got one person for horseback riding now.
Oh,
Glad to
cool.
see that.
Yes, we have equal representation for cross-country skiing, trail running, horseback riding, snowshoeing, mountain biking. It looks like primarily hikers so far.
We've got. Does anybody need more time? We have 18 of 20 folks. Not sure if everybody's at their computers.
Looks like it's us.
But that's okay. We'll go ahead.
Show results. All right, can you see that, but nobody sees that on the screen. But you see it there. Okay. All right, it looks like hiking wins at 72%. Strolling is a close second with 39%.
Great. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we will share those results as we go. Okay, so finally, this might be our trickiest function. So we'll ask you to bear with us here, especially, yeah, go ahead. So we want you to, we want some verbal feedback on this question. So if anybody is willing to speak up, unmute their mics, we'd like to hear from you verbally. If you were to plan a weekend of hiking, mountain biking, and sightseeing around Sturbridge, what might be a briefly, what might be your agenda for that? So are gonna have to turn our volume on.
All right. Let's see if that works.
So we are not quite able to hear folks yet, but
Yeah, if you were
we have
talking,
to turn our,
We have to do the way it did
we
before.
have to, yeah, we have to turn our volume down in settings.
oh, hang on 1 second. This is I wouldn't say it's my fault. It's technology fault.
Bit of a trick technology,
Was
just
it
to
in
avoid
here?
feedback since we've got a few computers in the same room.
I don't remember how we did it.
I think it's in there.
Was it here? I have to exit. This is not. All right, you want to try? Hold on, we're handing over the reins.
Okay.
Just like the volume here. Now that I'm looking at it.
It's not, it's through Zoom.
Sorry, I'm having some trouble through Zoom. I think I have to actually exit this. Okay. Which I hate to do, or at least minimize.
So we're sharing our screen. now.
Yep. Why not? Working on it. Now we can get back in here. All right, we got that. Sorry about this. We're trying to get the controls and we can't seem to see it.
Okay, we're gonna stop sharing our screen for a
Yep.
moment. I think that might be our issue, unfortunately.
Too many, so we'll try that one. Why don't I see? There, that one. Okay, then we have to stop sharing. Display settings.
Where this PowerPoint?
See it? Sorry, we've lost the controls to Zoom. I don't know. Let's see,
Is it through Google?
maybe. No, not through this one. Hi, everybody, look at my hand. Sorry, just bear with us. I'm sorry.
Should we move over right now?
Are you working with two screens? Because the
I'm sure.
controls might be on the screen you're not looking at.
I can't even get out of this one. Could you?
Should we move over?
Yep, move on.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
Yeah, the laser try that.
Is it
Untick
just
the laser
that?
pointer. Go to the Zoom meeting.
Here. That's what I'm having trouble with. I can't get back to the actual Zoom meeting.
Click gallery view.
Review. Still working on it. What is this?
I just gonna swing through.
That's just that.
Dave Peterkin's saying, are you using two monitors? Check both.
No, we're on. Well,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes. Stop share. Thank you. Yep.
I don't know
it's on
how.
there.
Oh,
Yep.
thank you. You are a genius, Dave. Is it this?
This new share.
Stop share.
Stop share.
Trying to see it from here.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dave.
Thank you, Dave,
Thank
for
you
being
so
our
much,
tour guide
Dave.
to the day, and thank you for the Zoom help. That was good, I appreciate it.
Okay.
We're forgetting the gigantic screen in front of our face.
That is helpful. Okay, so we still don't have audio.
So we're the
The
whole
volume.
point of all of this is trying to figure out the audio for some reason. It should be this.
Speaker. Mhm. And we turned down, go to audio settings
Yes, and we turn that
and turn
down.
that volume back up. Okay.
Okay, who
Yep.
wants to be the lucky one to talk to us?
After that, someone's got to say something after that, the bottom.
It's Becky Gendro. I can start.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becky.
No problem. I had some time to get some ideas here. Think about it. So,
See, we meant to do that.
I would say Wells State Park. That's a pretty well-known area for hiking. They also have beach access to Walker Pond, swimming, etc. I'd say that people would think of Lead Mine and the Hines properties for all the trails that are out there. OSV, I think people would think about going to OSV during that time. Westville, with that you have hiking, you also have access to the Quinnebog River, so canoe and kayak launching. And then not thinking about the properties, but also people would be thinking about going downtown, maybe going to the local restaurants and the breweries that we have here too.
To avoid trip.
All right.
Nice.
This is fabulous. You're on. Now we
Okay,
can-
we've got a really delicate dance of muting here. So thank you for bearing with the little looping feedback as we go. Thank you so much for that, Becky. I think we should be pretty close to figured that out. So we'll be able to hear you and you can hear us, and that is great. So I am going to share our screen
We're
again.
gonna try it.
I'm gonna go over here and share
You're
my
gonna try to
screen.
share. Okay. All right, we're gonna try to share on a different screen, so hopefully we avoid some of that.
So we can get back to our,
If anybody else has any suggestions for what they would think of doing for a day in Sturbridge on the trails, please feel free to share your thoughts in the interim.
Hi, this is Dina Sexton. Can you hear
Hello.
me?
Thanks. Hi, Dina.
Hi, thank you. I wanted to share that Lead Mine is amazing for mountain biking. And that's one place I would certainly start. And then I also love the trails that are found at 60 and 70 Cedar Street, which are also right next to the Burgess Trails as well, which is great and near Cedar Lake and the rec area where there's so much to do, from swimming to basketball to pickleball. So lots of fun to be had there as well.
Great.
great,
Thank you.
awesome. Thanks so much. So I'm gonna go ahead and share our screen so we can move on to the next question and really get into the meat of the conversation. Can everybody see that?
No, it's still stuck on mine because.
Nope.
No, can you see it? Okay, we can see it. Okay.
Okay. Go ahead and skip through. I gotta catch up. So we're gonna start by, this is our, after our practice poll, this is our real poll. So we're gonna go ahead and launch this poll that we would love for you to answer, just like the last one. And we wanna know, the purpose of our meeting tonight is to talk about the original, whether the original vision and goals of the Trails Master Plan that was written in 2012 still represent your values as a community. So if folks could keep a heads up, we're going to go ahead and launch that poll.
You want me to?
Yep, now. So if you can answer what value of those below is the most important for an updated Sturbridge Trails plan to consider. And then the second question, we'd like you to answer whether what of those values do you think is the least important to consider?
7 out of 7 so far. Wait for a few more minutes. It's a few things to read.
We just need to.
See, I see. Okay.
So it's sounding like some folks are able to see the poll and some folks are not. And unfortunately, Zoom is kind of an inherently glitchy media. But rest assured, we're actually planning to put out a public survey to gather some more official input that will help us in moving forward with our plan. So that will keep an eye out for that. If you've put your email in the chat, then you'll have an opportunity in the future to be able to give us input in a survey format. So that's great.
You can put the answer in the chat. I see this from
Yep, that's
Gus.
totally
That's a
fine,
good
too.
idea.
Yeah,
Perfectly fine.
sure. Yeah, let's all go ahead since that seems to be working well. Let's take that and let's take a few moments and let's all just respond in the chat. And if you don't feel comfortable not answering not anonymously, that's okay. But so
yeah,
we'll give folks a few moments to answer in the chat what they think are the most important values to consider in the updated plan and the least important values. Great. Thank you. Great, thank you. Thank you, Lee.
yeah, that's great. Okay.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Feel free to keep writing. We're going to go ahead and move ahead, and we should be able to, this is really just to get your thoughts started to flow about these topics. So we should have another opportunity to discuss these further as we get into the meeting.
Okay.
So now we would like to kind of open the floor to you for more of a back and forth discussion about how the vision was written in the original Trails plan. And we want to know if this vision statement still represents Sturbridge's values around trail stewardship. And we will go ahead and mute our mics and allow you folks to speak. You'll just remember to unmute your mic before you speak.
Yep. Does anyone want to chime in and give some verbal thoughts? I know a lot of people seem to be using the chat box, but we are open for voice communication. Just unclick your microphone and please speak up. Thank you.
All right, well, we don't like silence, so this is Lee Darren. I do think that the master trails plan is still accurate. I think it's a great vision. There are a host of great places to visit on all of the trails. I've walked most of them. I think it's, I don't want to say a diamond in the rough. I think it's I think it needs to be encouraged more. I think the Sturbridge Tourist Association maybe could get involved, but I do think that the master trails plan is still accurate. I like that we are branding ourselves as a conservation leader. I think it's a wonderful compliment to our cosmopolitan side with our great restaurants. And if we could merge those two, I think it would make it more advantageous to us.
Great, thank you.
Got any thought about this. I'm Klaus Hackfeld, and last year, I'm a member of the Rotary Club here. We had a 5K race, the first 5K race that we've been involved in that was actually on the Sturbridge Trails. To my utter amazement, I've lived in town 42 years, and I'd never actually taken advantage of the trails. So this was really my first introduction last October, and I was totally delighted with what I saw. I was very impressed also with the support that we got from the town. I think what it seemed to indicate to me was two things. One is that the vision statement, I have, by the way, read the entirety of the 2012 report just today, but I was quite impressed how very much on target I thought it still is. So when I go and look at the vision, as you've got it up on the screen right now, I agree with the previous speaker that I think it's right on. My point for speaking up really is that I'm coming in at this as a long-time Sturbridge resident, ashamed of the fact that I've really not made extensive use of the trails, but in the process of directing the organization of the 5K, it's really got me involved with it. And I have to say that I'm delighted that the town is doing this. When you think about what went wrong was somehow or other, the trails did not reach out to me sufficiently well to drive me to go and have a look at the trails. You know, I'm close enough, it's not an issue. But I think from the point of view of what does it offer as I see it now looking forward, when we're certainly looking forward to doing it again next year. And you know, I think it turns out to be another way of promoting the trails to the outside community, because I mean, this was a 5K event, and you know, you have professional racing management companies that promote the event all over, really. So you know, it does turn out to be another way, if you like, of bringing to not just our own community but outside communities the fact that the Sturbridge trails are available. And you know, they certainly, the people who ran the 5K last year were very complimentary about their experience. So we were doing something right there, not just we as a club, but also the town and the trails management.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Richard Paradise. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Rich.
Okay. I'm a member of the Town Trail Committee. My partner Denise and I like to lead guided hikes on our town trails, and they're extremely popular because people don't have to worry about getting lost. They can just follow somebody, and we take them to places they wouldn't go on their own. The last hike we did before the flu hit was on New Year's Day, and we had 60 hikers show up to go visit a sawmill site that OSV did a dig on a number of years ago. And we had drawings, and we gave a short talk at the site, and it was just really a nice hike. It was quite popular, and I'm looking forward to doing them again. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. And I think the education component to sometimes novice hikers is a really, really great way to engage them. And it seems like that really happened.
Laura.
Yes, hi. I am Florence Romano. I moved to the town 2 years ago, just before the pandemic hit. And one of the reasons I moved to this town was because of the amount of trails and natural areas that it has. And for me, one of the important things is the connectivity of neighborhoods through these trails. I have a little boy, 5 years old, and we love walking in the neighborhood trails and Borges and the recreational area. And as an example of this, when my son goes to Borges Elementary School, and the car didn't want to start one day and say, well, let's go walking. And we were able to walk from our home through the 60, 70 Cedar Street trails, all along the rec area and the Borges trails, and we arrived to school and without having to walk on very busy streets. And if we could have continued to the downtown area and even like connect to Old Stourbridge Village. So having this connectivity for me was very important when I moved here.
Thank you. That's great feedback.
So just to rephrase the question a little bit, it sounds like we're getting going. What changes to this vision in the wording or the emphasis of the importance of any of the elements? What changes do you think might be made to better reflect or enhance this vision to really move it into the next phase of planning for the future?
Hi, Glenn Colburn. Can you hear me?
Hello, we can hear you, Glenn.
Great. Glenn Colburn again from Opakam Land Trust. For the vision statement from the 2012 plan, I really think it doesn't need much editing. I think it really states what the Trails Master Plan is trying to accomplish. Since that time, 2012, a lot has been built as far as trails, and the system has expanded. Things have changed a little bit. So I think, the vision is the same, but I think more tweaking needs to be done to the guts of the master plan. The vision in that is probably changed a little bit as we, move from Hines Farm and Lead Mine trails to the Plimpton and the Riverlands and build out in new areas. So Opakam, is happy to work with you as you work on this master plan, and we do hold the conservation restrictions on a number of them. And as we get into the plan further, we want to make sure that we do pay attention to the purpose of the conservation restrictions. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much.
This is David Barnacle.
Hello, David.
One of the things that we should emphasize, and Tom can do this better than I, but we had about 7,000 people that visited the trails last year. And what we're trying to do this spring with the plans that the Trails Committee has put together in their January and February meetings has been to get more interconnectivity amongst the trails. But at the same time, these trails now are about 10 years old, And one of the things that happened is all of a sudden, we have a new generation of people coming up and they're liking different kinds of activities on the trails. So suddenly it becomes important to get mountain biking going on the trails. Thus, we have the Riverlands looking precisely at what we think is a new and important vision for part of the trail system, to be able to incorporate this as well as walking. And originally we were talking about horseback riding. We have had a cross-country team, our own Tantasco Warriors cross-country team, that has run on our trails in their meets. And so I think all of these things contribute to exactly what the vision as stated in the 2012 and also in the 2022 mission statement refer to.
Thank you. That's great.
Thank you so much for all that input. It sounds like folks have a desire to kind of get into some of the more specifics or the kind of the operations of how this vision is going to be carried out. So we'd also really like to open the floor to discuss the goals as they are laid out in the 2012 plan. And can anybody not see those 6 goals up on your screen? I should still be sharing. It is a lot of text, but I wanted to have it there for you to reference. Great, awesome. So if you want to take a moment and to review those goals, Tom went through them pretty quickly in the beginning. I would like to start a discussion about how we might, first let's talk about whether any of these goals conflict with a vision that takes that connectivity into account that folks have been talking about. Or do any of these goals particularly support that goal, that overall vision of connectivity?
So, Flor, again here. I think it's not, even though connectivity is mentioned, connectivity can be connecting different things. So I think it's like this, the purpose in these goals is to connect the Riverside Greenway also with the commercial district. And I think it would be wonderful to add some type of connectivity across neighborhoods so that people can walk right out of the houses. They can walk right out of their work. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
I think the idea of connectivity, Glenn Colburn, Opakam Land Trust, the idea of connectivity is good, but to do that, I think you need a vision of how you're going to create the greenways, connect different areas, like how are we going to connect Riverlands to Heinz Farm and Lead Mine? You know, we've got a lot of trails in those 2 areas, and if we could make connections to some of the other big areas like the Riverlands and Army Corps lands, then I think we should focus on that.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Howard Fife from Opakam Land Trust. I know it's a one-town thing here, but we mentioned Brimfield, But we also have connections already to Holland. We have connections working in Southbridge. I mean, you know, and then connecting parcels rather than connecting trails within one parcel is really more, well, that's where you're going to get your mileage. You know, if you can get from one to the other and you got 10 in each and you have access to 20 plus miles. So, you know, rather than try to load up everything with 10 and say, we got our 50.
Right.
I'd like to say that connectivity is really important, but I don't believe that connecting the trails is going to be possible in a lot of ways. The Hines to the Riverlands or what that may come at some time, but I think connectivity between neighborhoods, like Flora was saying, is kind of important. I believe that connectivity from the commercial areas like down in Friskdale across the Riverlands via bridge to the Riverlands trail gives an opportunity for neighborhoods that are off the beaten path, off of Main Street, to come down and to stroll through the commercial area and to also take the little bridge across that will be built eventually across the river to the Riverlands trails and to utilize those. This could be just for folks that aren't really full-time hikers or hobbyist hikers, but just for a stroll. And they might be pushing a baby carriage, so they're with their small children or family. That connectivity between what Flora mentioned, the neighborhoods and the trails, would be kind of important too. And I know that things are addressed very well in the 2012 master plan and the goals there. And I really agree; those goals are great goals. I think now, 10 years later, just broadening them out, taking them a little step further beyond the hikers and tourists that we know are going to come anyway, eventually, if we market it right, but also to the folks that are just in town, just to, as was mentioned before, if I had only known the trails were there, would have seen them earlier. Well, it'd be nice to have that connectivity, just be able to walk down Main Street and just walk across to the river, or to be able to have a trail, a trailhead that is closer to the downtown area, so people could access it easier. Not easier, sorry, it's a bad word, choice of words, but just for those spur of the moment type of little walks and hikes, and leave the mountain biking and the longer hikes for those that want to go to the trailhead and spend several hours doing it, or a couple of hours. I think they just have to think of where the direction is going with folks, especially with that nowadays. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wally.
Hey, everyone, this is Brandon. I had some stuff, so I'm joining a little late, but Wally, that is one of the driving factors that we've always wanted to get to, but without the core properties to walk to, that part's been a trouble. So I think you're spot on in the sense that we're trying to figure out how to get more neighborhoods to different properties and to downtown via trails or the appropriate walking paths, et cetera. So that is definitely something that, the more insight from different neighborhoods that people want to provide and thoughts are very welcome in that space.
Thank you, Brandon.
I think it's interesting in looking at these 6 goals that we've kind of hit on all of them. The one that I noticed that no one's talked about, and it's a goal that the Trails Committee to this date has done very little on, is goal number 5, which is improve and highlight public access to the Quinnebog River. That can also be a way of connecting neighborhoods, somewhat different than by on foot. But I'm just kind of throwing it out there to see if anyone has any thoughts on that.
Tom, I agree, Tom, that's the Quinnebog River is such a wonderful resource that goes through our town that I don't think we take advantage of. We have a wonderful canoe race in the spring, and there's an awful lot of great fishing along it. And we have the Westville and the East Brimfield Dam area that we can utilize, but the actual river itself, to actually utilize it in is great. Would be great.
Tom, I totally agree with you on that, you know, when I worked with Sturbridge, I always thought that, you know, the Quinnebog was an untapped resource for recreation. And I'd like to point everybody towards the Shepherd parcel. I think that's a really good opportunity there to easily access the river. I don't know what obstacles there might be downstream from there, but it is a very scenic area.
Turn it off.
Why?
I'm done.
Oh.
Selena,
Using the chat, but the OSV access road, I know that that's not town property or something that we can take control of, but that access road and its access to the river, particularly now that the beavers are active again. And there's also a couple of hawks that have taken up residence on the trees left over from the tornado damage right near the ball field lights that you can see from the bridge looking towards the highway barn. That's a great place to look, and it's a great place to walk along the river.
Great, thank you, Lee.
You know, one of the things that come to my mind, and I come from really a very specific perspective here, and this is really going back again to having sporting events to draw people to the trails. What we found last year was that if you were to have a significant sporting event, that would bring people in from other towns. Of course, along with that comes car traffic and the parking problem. We found it very difficult last year, really, to say, you know, given all the trails that Sturbridge offers, you know, several of which would be potentially race-worthy. The issue still is, where do you go and park the cars? So my point simply is, even if we were to say, imagine that we could actually grow a sporting event that really does draw significant numbers of people to Sturbridge and to the trails, we'd have to think very seriously as to how and where we park. We were extremely lucky last year, and we're hoping that we'll be just as lucky this year that Old Sturbridge Village provided that. But if that sporting event becomes bigger, you know, then you know, that becomes a problem even there.
Great, thank you, Klaus.
Hi, Rich Paradise again. Our conservation restrictions have a lot to do with our limited parking, and I don't know what the solution to that is.
Thank you. That's really great to make note of.
I mean, one of the other things that sort of concern me really is, damage that we would actually do. Imagine a scenario where an event this year draws in, say, 100 people, and 5 years later, it's 600 people are coming. And I mean, I'm not using that casually. The Rotary Club in Littleton, for example, they have a triathlon where typically 600 athletes arrive each year. And they've done that for 14 years so far. So, what I'm pointing out really is that it isn't just that a sporting event, if well done, can grow in magnitude in terms of how many athletes there are taking place, are there at the place. But you have to also think, what damage are we doing to the trails in the process? How do we deal with this? Does this become a burden entirely on the town? Does the sporting organization have a responsibility to cover some of the damage that's done? I really have no experience in this, but it's a thought that comes to mind.
Hi, Klaus, as a representative of Opakam, we hold at least 5 conservation restrictions on properties in the town. And I know with lead mine, we don't hold that particular CR. I think that's DCR that holds that one. And I believe, you probably had to go to the Conservation Commission, who has care, custody, and control of the properties, and ask for a permit to use the properties. So they're probably keeping an eye on how many people you're inviting onto the property. And at some point, like you say, when you start hitting 600 people and you're causing damage, I'm sure they'll pull the plug and say, I'm sorry, that just, it's not consistent with the conservation restriction that protects the ecology of the land. So as your event grows larger, you might outgrow the facilities that you're using at lead mine. You can't be causing a lot of damage and then just say, well, we're going to patch it up when we leave. They have to prevent that.
Thank you for saying that, because we did go for the permit and obviously got the permit, but that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's a situation where we need to establish number limits ahead of time.
Yeah, I think, Klaus and Glenn, I think this is Brandon again. We're not there yet. I mean, we're building sustainable trails. I think we had, the number off the top of my head, 40,000 people on lead mine last year. So when we get to a point, definitely where we start to degrade the trail surfaces through activity, we'll definitely, be on top of that. I think it's more so, most of our trails are pretty, where we can, they're aggressively sustainable, and I think can hold the numbers we have now and for the next 3 or 4 years, Klaus, of the 5K. I think we're good for a bit, but definitely something we have to be cognizant of on all properties.
Yeah, I guess what I'm really saying is I would prefer to be sensitive to those issues, and I'll take guidance. And thank you for that, Brandon.
Oh, Klaus, yeah, you're the last person in town we're worried about being sensitive to issues, man. You are very thoughtful about how your use of the properties and working with us. So thank you for your partnership.
So we've had a couple of responses in the chat. We have had the comment, easy access to Farquhar Bridge, at Farquhar Bridge. That might be going back in the conversation a little bit, but then Liz Newlands also says that, just for reference, the Massachusetts Division of Fisheries and Wildlife holds the conservation restriction on the lead mine mountain property.
Can I throw in a few comments here?
Sure, that'd be
Please.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't live in Sturbridge. I'm a equestrian person, and Tom knows me quite well. I'm the equestrian representative on the Massachusetts Recreational Trails Advisory Board. And actually, I've been kind of pestering him for a while about the parking and stuff like that, where we could go to actually trailer in to go horseback riding. I did a ride out of Sturbridge Village 80 million years ago, and I had a great time and thought there's all this land and trails that we can't access because there was no place to park. I did read your trails master plan, the 2012 one. I went through all that. I was looking at the trails, and I went back and looked at Leadmine, and I've mapped out myself a route, and I will be out there this year to explore those trails. But there's an underserved thing for equestrians to think about, and I don't know if you allow snowmobiling either in the town on your trails, but both of those would require space to park a truck and a trailer.
Thank you, Becky. That's great feedback. That's a lot to consider. I know that gets tricky when it's something that is, it's not just a human. It's a little harder to figure out the logistics when it's like that. Thank you.
And Becky, this is Brandon again. We do build our parking lots to have a turnaround for larger vehicles with a trailer on the back. So the Leadmine property has a loop to turn around in. The Riverlands has an area to turn around in, specifically for equestrian, is why they're put there. Whether the spots are filled by other cars, and so on, that's a different conversation and something we can think about. But definitely, we are thinking about equestrian when we build parking lots for, large vehicle and trailer access. We are not thinking about snowmobiles. So snowmobiles are not allowed on our properties. No motorized vehicles are, but definitely something that we're thinking about.
Thanks, Brandon.
I think I'd like to just pass on a compliment to the Trails Committee. We had the 5K last Halloween, and we were delighted. The weather turned fine, and it was very successful. I received a great number of compliments on the part of the runners, how nice the trails were, how much fun they had in it. So clearly the Trails Committee and the town has done something worthy of doing, and it was appreciated by the runners.
Thank you.
Well, you guys did a lot of the work, Klaus, in terms of running that activity, and that's something we're looking for as a committee, more groups in town to partner where they do the activity, and we'll make sure the trails are in good preparation for them. So all good things to think about.
So what we're going to go ahead and do is stop sharing, just to make it a little bit easier for folks to see each other. And it sounds like our conversation, we have thoughts that maybe we want to get out on the table that aren't specifically directly related to those goals as they were written in the 2012 plan. So we're just going to open up the floor and continue your thoughts. If you have input or want to ask each other any questions, ask the Trails Committee any questions, the planners any questions, now is definitely the time to do that.
Even if you guys just want to share experiences, amongst yourselves and things like that, again, we're working on trying to update the Trails Master Plan. Any feedback that we hear from you guys is extremely helpful for us, just in terms of your experience with it, your lack thereof. So please just feel, free to discuss whatever in relation to the Sturbridge Trails and the Trails Committee.
Hi, Rich Paradise again. Excuse me. Thank you very much, Klaus, for that wonderful compliment on our trails. We work very hard maintaining them and keeping them clean and mowed. And it's a lot of work, but we enjoy it. We're just not very good at marketing, and that's what we need people like you for. Thank you.
Hi, Glenn Colburn from Opakam Land Trust. Just a couple comments as you work on the master plan. I think almost all the properties in Sturbridge have a conservation restriction on them. So you should become familiar with what's in those restrictions and who needs to be notified. I know when the Trust for Public Lands did the Plimpton CR, they put in there that everything had to go through natural heritage. So each conservation restriction is a little bit different, and you'll have to pay attention to those. I know years back, Fish and Wildlife was quite concerned about the trail development in Lead Mine. They were concerned that the 2012 master plan had a labyrinth, I think is what he said, a labyrinth of trails, and they were too densely packed. Too many trails and not enough space would ruin the wildlife habitat. So I don't think anything was ever put in writing, but they did say at one point that anything south of the pipeline was supposed to stay single track, ST number 3, I think is the narrow backwoods trails. And they were basically saying north of the pipeline, the density of the trails could be a little bit greater. So I think that's something that you should be aware of too, that the conservation restrictions, one of the purposes is to protect wildlife habitat. So we can't build a labyrinth of trails like the 2012 plan showed. You should be, thinking about what habitat you can preserve by routing trails in certain areas. You certainly want to pick up the scenic spots, but if you have an important habitat area, you got to be aware of that, and work with your conservation agent. And I'm sure she can tell you, what areas you can go through and what areas you need to steer clear of. And we as Opakam, as the conservation restriction holders, will be happy to walk with you or preview any of your plans. But I think those are important points. So be aware of what the conservation restrictions are directing you to do, what's allowed, and the density of the trails needs to be paid attention to. Thanks.
And I think that, thanks, Glenn, for that. I think that raises a great clarification that we've worked on, for the entire group. For the 2012 plan introduced a lot of options. And one of them was known as the spaghetti option, which was, if you were to pack a lot of single track onto a property. And that's not something that, I think there's a few aspects to it. That's not something that the community is looking for, the committee is looking for, and so on. I think one thing that we've had some funny discussions over is that, many of the properties, we know what they can handle for trail and what they're, and many of them, the trail is close to completion or exists already. And one of the problems we ran into with the 2012 plan is that when you put a wide line on a piece of paper, it looks like there's a lot of track and a lot of trail. So even the trails we have today, which many of them are at a mature state from our perspective, if you put that as a fine line of what it actually represents in terms of covering the property, it appears much different than it did back in the 2012 plan. So it's definitely something, perception is an important part of how we go forward and make sure that people understand what the actual coverage is for these properties. Because we do not want, to overdo the trail on any property, but we also want to make sure the perception is correct in that what we've built and what we're doing is not overdoing the property either. And there was definitely some confusion in 2012 when that came out.
Yeah, I agree with you. There was definitely a lot of confusion in 2012 when that came out. I can remember, Fish and Wildlife being quite concerned about it, that the plan was adopted and they were given the opportunity to review it. They didn't respond and the plan moved forward. And that's unfortunate. But nonetheless, I think when we look at the 2012 plan, we all have to chuckle at no matter how skinny the trails should be, they had a lot of trails there and they really didn't give any consideration to private property. They were just kind of laid out as densely as you could ever imagine. And I think what the Trails Committee has done to date that I've seen, they've done a great job. The density isn't, that bad. You're not walking on one trail and seeing people on another trail. I think, the trail system in Sturbridge is superb. It's really good. I think you paid a good attention to everything. And as you said, your trails are very sustainable. You put a lot of work into it. I give Tom a lot of credit for that. Good work, Tom.
Howard Fife, to follow up with Glenn, we probably should have discussion on the mileages. I know DCR has it in their manual. I don't know what Fish and Wildlife have, but if we put, for the future, if we have some kind of plan and can point to a chart that says this is what we agree to, and people coming with more trails than we've kind of agreed to and that we think are ecologically sufficient, then we're in a better position to regulate the mileage and not have specialized groups coming in and applying undue influence on decisions.
I'm just wondering if anyone has any thoughts or would like to give some input on goal number 3, which was create a safer and more efficient bicycling pedestrian infrastructure, including connections to historical business and commercial areas and scenic rural touring routes. So we do have a complete streets plan in place, and we are looking at identifying locations to do on-road bicycle trails marked, and also to add sidewalks. And I'm just wondering if anyone has any thoughts about that. Or maybe not.
I think from a committee perspective, Gene, it's critical. It's one of the lacking aspects of our plan, in that we want more people having safe access to different parts of town. And I think that's where it's a really tough balance with projects that are going on in town and development. And if a road's going to be redone, do you paint the bike lanes on that road to get a certain community to different parts of the town and connect them and so on? So from a trail committee perspective, it's something we've talked with the Conway School about, making sure that it's a little more ingrained in the master plan. How we translate that into the community and the town, having, being more cognizant of that as projects move forward. It's a tough balance. It's another thing to put on the table. So I think that's as the committee, that's sort of where we stand on it.
I would agree with that. And I think, one of our big challenges is that our Main Street is a state highway. So we're kind of at the mercy of Mass DOT, who, you know, things always don't go the way that we would like them to go
No.
when your main street is a highway. So, you know, it's just something that we're always trying to look at and always looking for opportunities for sidewalks and, you know, trying to encourage Mass DOT to do their part to, you know, kind of follow the policies that they encourage, such as complete streets. So just want to put that out there to make sure we're thinking about that in the plan update as well as going forward.
One of the things that I was thinking about is when I'm traveling, I need to make a stop, you know, make a pit stop, you want a food, bathroom, and I'd like to take a quick walk somewhere. So if you can get someplace that has that available to it, I think you could get some traffic there.
Amanda and crew, any other topics to be covered tonight? Anything else that's top of mind from everybody?
Tonight's goal was definitely to focus on that vision and goals and really just kind of get a grounding in how the community feels about the original trails plan and how that's been implemented so far. And I think that folks have been so generous with their feedback about how things that they would like to see moving forward and what's worked and what maybe hasn't, they'd like to see considered more moving forward. So that is pretty much it for what we wanted to cover tonight. But thank you. I think we'll probably end up adjourning a little bit early. I'm gonna share my screen again. It has some contact information and some next steps. Let me see, for how you might be able to get in touch with us and stay informed about the plan. Let's see, oops, there we go. So yeah, we have this meeting recorded. It's going to be available on YouTube. And we're gonna be perusing this back and capturing all of your input and considering that feedback and continue to keep you all a part of the conversation as we develop this document that hopefully will serve as a good roadmap for the next decades moving forward. Yeah, and so thank you also for adding your emails to the chat. We'll keep you updated throughout the process. I mentioned a survey earlier that we would like to develop and distribute, and your feedback there will be greatly appreciated. And then if you have any additional comments or questions too, you can find our emails here. These slides are going to be on the Trails Committee website, the Sturbridge Trails website. So navigate to that website. I recommend you clicking around the website if you haven't yet as well. But you can find these slides here with our contact information, and we will appreciate any of your comments as well moving forward. Does anybody have any last thoughts that they'd like to share or questions that they'd like to ask the Trails Committee or the core team, the folks here here in the City Council?
I'd like
before
to
we close.
I would like to just add a little lighter touch to the meeting. It's been very serious in that we talked earlier on about the 5K race that we had last Halloween, and we got a lot of help from a lot of people. And one of the things that the Rotary Club like to do is to try to recognize those people. As such, for example, Tom Chamberlain was recognized, but Brendan Goodwin has been avoiding the issue. So Brendan, you will eventually be receiving this.
Thank you, Klaus. I realized tonight that I owed your call back on that. So thank you very much.
Okay.
Maybe we share that. Maybe we get together over a beer to discuss that, Klaus.
I'm game.
I knew you would be. I knew you would be. We'll have Chamberlain buy it.
Even better.
You had to get me into that, huh, Brandon?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate it, especially your patience in the beginning while we figured out all the technical glitches.
Yeah, our apologies for that. Our apologies.
Clearly, we're used to being on your side, not ours. So thank you so much. The feedback was great. And we really look forward to meeting with you guys again in the future.
Yep. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, members of the Trails Committee. Thank you, Gene, everyone for being here. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
So
Have a great night.
have a night, everybody. Take care.
Take care.